Hi everyone, this is Anna Cortez and this is How to Live It. I'm here today with Diana Levy. Hi Diana.
Hi Anna, how are you?
Thank you so much for being here today.
Happy to be here. This is fun. Thanks.
So I'm trying to demystify the belief that people have to be born an entrepreneur to start and run a successful business. I don't believe that's the case, and Diana is here to share her incredible story of founding Undercover Snacks. And let me tell you guys, just a little quick parenthesis. I bought this in a supermarket about a year and a half ago, and I became in love with this. It's super healthy, it's delicious. And then I learned that the story of the person who founded it is just the most incredible story. And I've been dreaming of having this conversation with Diana for a long time and of sharing with all of you. So thank you, Diana, for doing this.
Hi Anna, thank you, and I'm glad you were able to find Undercover, and so happy that you reached out to me. Thank you.
So we're having to do this at, sort of home edition of this recording, but I hope everyone can hear well. So Diana, why don't we start from the beginning? Tell us a little bit your inspiration for starting Undercover Snacks, which is basically a very inspirational story. Diana is currently, she's founded it, she's a co-owner, and she's the CEO of Undercover Snacks.
So prior to having children, I had done several different things. I had worked in PR for a while. I worked as an options trader. I worked for CBS News for a short time. And then I went to law school, and then I ended up having 3 children very close in age, twins and an older daughter, and I ended up having 3 children in diapers at the same time. I sort of threw up my hands and decided I really needed to put my career and work on hold for a while. And as my kids got older and I sort of thought about going back into the workforce and what I wanted to do, the things I had done before were not really things I could go back to. I hadn't done anything long enough or deep enough to really go back to, but yet each one of those experiences really taught me an incredible amount, things that I didn't even realize that I was learning along the way. And being a mom taught me a lot, and sort of raising my children, being involved in their activities, being involved in PTOs and school activities. At some point I realized I really learned a lot, and I really wanted to go back into the workforce in a meaningful way. I wanted to go all in. I wasn't at that point looking for a part-time job or something to do on the side. I really wanted to go all in. And the more I thought about it, the more I realized the only way to do that at that point was to start my own business, do whatever it takes to get it off the ground. I really wanted to be a CEO of a company, and there was no other way to do that if it wasn't my own company. And I began to look at things that I was interested in, and I kept exploring different business opportunities. And ultimately, after kind of going down a couple of different roads, I realized I had to look at what was around me and where I had resources and what I knew. And from raising 3 kids, I knew a lot about food. I'd always been a chocoholic. And then I sort of looked at my husband, who at this point was in the best position to help me do what I wanted to do. And he had been on the finance side of food businesses for about 30 years. He had contacts in the industry. He knew what I was talking about when I was talking about food, and he was in the position, and we had mutual interests. He was in the position to help me sort of leverage some of his experience and leverage some of his contacts. And so in 2013, I started taking some chocolate classes, and very quickly came up with Undercover Chocolate Company, and rented a commercial kitchen from time to time, and got chocolate products out in a couple of different retail stores, but they were really chocolates. They were chocolate dipped caramel apples. They were a couple of different other confections. I sometimes did chocolates for events, for weddings, for bar and bat mitzvahs, and for gifts for people, and had a little tiny gift business going. And then sort of stepped back around 2016 and realized that I really understood the chocolate business, but that I wanted a healthier snack. I really wanted to take my experience at this point using chocolate and come up with a healthier snack. And right at that point, 2 of my daughters were diagnosed with celiac disease. And so I kind of wanted to come up with a healthier snack that was also gluten-free, that was something that they really loved, that was using the same really good quality chocolate that I was using when I had a confectionery business, but that could be a snack that went on the market in a bigger way. And literally just went up and down the aisles at Whole Foods, went on every website I could find, quizzed my kids on ingredients that they knew about, and spent month after month after month coming up with new recipes, and sat in my kitchen when my kids went to school and took a spreadsheet and tried to figure out what the fiber, the nutrients, and the protein was in particular, and the sugars on each of the recipes that I was doing, and looking at supply chain and where I could get the ingredients from and pricing and how I could do it, and ultimately came up with a product that was lightly chocolate covered crispy quinoa. All of a sudden, everybody thought I was crazy, and the kids all said, "Mom, you're never going to be able to do this. You're wasting your time." My husband was completely supportive and believed I could do it from the beginning, even though I didn't really think I could do it. And one day he came home and I'm like, I got it. I found something that tastes better than anything on the market. That's really a snack. And it was delicious. And I still didn't tell anybody else. I mean, a couple of my kids' friends would come over every day. My kids kind of laughed at me. Their friends liked eating chocolate, so they were my focus group. And every day there'd be a group of kids in my house. Every day I'd give the group of kids, my invention of the day. And suddenly I knew I nailed it. Like this was it. And I came out with 6 different flavors, and fine-tune the branding and fine-tune the packaging. And a couple of mistakes along the way later eventually got it into stores. And that's basically how we got started. And then was able to get the product on the shelves in stores.
Diana, I think it's probably the 3rd or 4th time you tell me your story yourself, and I still have tears in my eyes every time I hear it from you, because I think there's so many lessons here. And before we dig deeper on the steps you took, I just want to say that your story shows some of the key lessons in entrepreneurship that people just sometimes forget, right? One is you have to just start, right? You have to get out there with the idea that you have, whether it is, in your case, shows it very well. You did not start already with the final business that you're really focusing on, right? You started experimenting. You said, I have this urge to do something, and you just took a step to do it. So I think that's lesson number 1. Lesson number 2 is you were very passionate about it, right? You were spending time learning and digging and doing research on your own, but, trying to leverage everything that already exists, right? Sometimes people think they have to create something from scratch, and it's, huge to be a business, but it doesn't have to be, right? You can leverage a lot of the existing tools and resources that are out there. And 3, you had sort of a real focus group of people who were trying out. These were your potential customers, right? They were trying, they were eating, they were giving you feedback. And at the end of the day, once we have, a small group of people who like what we do and who are willing to pay for it, that's a business, right?
Yeah, I absolutely. I think you said it perfectly. And I mean, so many people have said to me, gosh, I would love to start a business, but I don't have the idea. I don't have the right idea. Even my kids have said that to me. We want to be entrepreneurs, but we don't have the right idea. I'm like, I didn't have I kept waiting for years and years, and I'd write my ideas and tried to come up with the best, to try to suddenly have like this brilliant idea. And I think that's really missing the point. I think that you just get going, just do something, and every little thing, and even if you're working full time and you're doing something on the side, every little thing you do, it's just going to get you closer to something. And you may not know where you're going, but if you're determined to find something, eventually, and even now, fine, we found something. I got it on the shelves of Whole Foods fairly quickly, but that's nothing compared to where we are now. I've had to fine tune the packaging, the product, the way that we manufacture, so much that looking back, the idea was really, it was important. It had to be right. And it had to be something that people were going to buy and liked. But really, it's all the steps that I've taken since then in terms of growing the business that have gotten us to where we are now. The initial idea was important, but then you have to be willing to accept the fact that the initial idea is not going to be perfect, and you have to be willing to get going no matter what, make small mistakes so that you can stay in the game, and then keep pivoting every time you see the need to do so. And sometimes that's where little companies have an advantage over big companies, because when I was only in a handful of stores, when I would go out and do the demos myself and I'd get feedback, the next round of printing my packaging looked different. Or if I needed, we did change the name of the brand and the company. And we could do that because we're small enough to do that. And we could just talk directly to our customers and quickly make changes. And that, I think, in retrospect, is way more important than waiting until you perfect the right idea before you get going. You may not perfect it until you get going.
Diana, I mean, honestly, you've become such a seasoned entrepreneur, and it's amazing. I think it's really unbelievable. And I think the fact that you never had, you got the courage to just put yourself out there. And every successful business I've seen, every successful business I have invested in or I've advised, or now that I am an entrepreneur myself, I see if we don't put ourselves out there and just, get going, there's really no way that a business can grow. So I want to get some of the behind the scenes, sort of the tactical steps you took. So anyone who's watching this and wants to start and grow a business, they can learn, the real tips from you. And I apologize, I'm looking at the camera and at you.
No, I know, I'm doing the same thing.
So I look a little crazy, but it's so hard to do this.
Yeah.
So okay, so you got the product once you had, I know you've made changes. So tell us a little bit how, did you do a business plan from the beginning? How did that part of the planning work? Sometimes business start with a business plan. I mean, I've never seen a business who has successfully grown sticking to the original business plan, but what was your approach to that?
I mean, I wouldn't say, I've seen business plans, and I've seen, entrepreneurial programs in business schools where they tell you you've got to write this 20-page plan. I had a spreadsheet. I had a spreadsheet, and then I had a list of ideas on how to accomplish the goals in the spreadsheet. So we sort of looked at what our, costs of goods sold were, and what our overhead would be in terms of manufacturing, in terms of packaging, in terms of any marketing and promotions we would have to do. And it was a spreadsheet. And then, especially when you get started, and it's overwhelming really to think that you need a business plan, because you really don't have all of the information, or at least I didn't. I didn't really, if I wanted to get samples of ingredients from companies, they weren't giving me the best prices. They may not have sent me the right samples or be willing to send me samples. And it was really impossible to sort of know at the outset what a pound of quinoa costs, when I'm a big business. So therefore, how do you price it when you're a small business, and how do you get into the market? And so a lot of that was, you take your best guess, you take the information you have. I plugged it into a spreadsheet, and then we're still doing that now. Every time the information changes, or every time we sort of make new assumptions, we're changing the spreadsheet. We're not rewriting a business plan, we're changing the spreadsheet. We're constantly sort of looking at, what was initially, okay, the market was grocery. Now we realize, well, one market is grocery, and other channels may be equally or more important to grocery. Online channel, especially now, we've really got to pay attention to. There are channels like airlines, like food, drug, mass, like food service, different channels that when I initially was stirring quinoa and mixing it with chocolate, a couple of years ago, I forget about even thinking of these channels. I'd never heard of these channels. I mean, I'd never heard that. And a lot of this, I truly, when I first started this, I truly really didn't know what an invoice was. I did not know what a purchase order was. I didn't know what a sales order was. And so to go from that and then sort of constantly revising what was a spreadsheet that was kind of a version of a business plan, constantly Googling everything I didn't know to the point where I really did know it, was really sort of how I got from one step to the next.
Awesome.
But it was definitely little steps along the way. It wasn't from the outside, from the beginning saying, here's the business plan, because I didn't have the skill set or the information to do that.
And I mean, listen, I think that's one of the points I've been trying to demystify, which is a lot of people get discouraged to launch a business because I think they need this super detailed business plan, and it's not going to happen because, as you said, you don't know all of the sort of parameters you need to know to grow a business from the start. So I want people to understand that having a detailed business plan is not a requirement to start a business. Obviously we need to understand expenses and costs and investments and everything that goes into it, but business models change. As you said, your channels have expanded and your knowledge of all the assumptions that go behind the business have changed. So next question, which is one of my very interesting points you've told me before. How did you come up with the name and all the branding behind Undercover?
Sure. So initially, I had a smaller business that was more like a hobby. It was a confectionery business. It was called Undercover Chocolate Company, and I was dipping things in chocolate, so they were undercover, and I wanted a word that sort of reflected that, and I literally spent a week going through a thesaurus and a dictionary and then cross-referencing the words that I liked with the USPTO trademark website to make sure they were available to get a trademark. I just did that myself, and then I also checked the URLs on any word that I wanted to potentially use and tried my best to make sure that there wasn't competition in the industry. And once I found, once I kind of zeroed in on the word undercover and Undercover Chocolate Company, I filed for my own trademark for it and was able to get it that way. And then I started working with a graphic artist, and I we said, okay, Undercover Chocolate Company, what are the potential branding ways we can work with that? And I really wanted something that was lighthearted and fun and silly and clever. Those were sort of, what I was going for initially. And we came up with the spies with bright color hats, which was sort of fun and potentially appeals to children and adults and could really go all different ways. And the sunglasses were fun, and I could do a reflective sunglass on the packaging, which was sort of fun and I thought was eye-catching. And then I've worked on that theme. I now have a woman spy that's going on some of the, you can't quite see it there, but she's sort of around the corner on some of the displays and some of this packaging, and as we do different flavors, and then different color spy hats and packaging. And so it's still a work in progress. And once the product was on the market for a while, we decided we really were not going to just be a chocolate company. We really were a snack company. And so while the name of the company is still Undercover Chocolate Company, we've changed the name of the brand to Undercover Snacks, and we see ourselves going beyond just chocolate and down the road introducing products that have other ingredients in them besides just chocolate. I mean, listen,
I think if you are able, you should actually check. If you are able to check on Amazon, your biggest customer for Undercover, I'm sure I show up as the number one. So whatever you launch with Undercover Snacks, I'm a buyer, and I'm really a huge fan because I'm always looking for healthy snacks that are tasty and that are healthy. And as you know, I'm a huge fan of quinoa for a long time. So Diana, let's talk about the technology part of the business. How did you go about building a website and all of that? I mean, sometimes people get very frightened with, the technology aspect. And I know for you, it didn't hold you back. So let's talk a little bit about that.
I'm still working on that. Not totally thrilled with my website at the moment, but I have a wonderful graphic designer, and I worked with her, and I wrote the copy for the website, and then very, very inexpensively, I had somebody put together a WordPress site for me, and you know, using WooCommerce, and it's not sophisticated. It was not expensive. I put very, very little money into it, and you know, and at some point we'll redo it, and we'll try to make it a little, you know, more elaborate, but that should not be holding anybody back. That's these days, that's, you know, you can be really elaborate with it, but you can get a website up very easily and very quickly now.
Yes, that's the point. Let's talk about marketing and the first channels. What was your strategy when you started selling? I understand your strategy has changed, but how did you reach customers when you started, and how did you see that the change through time?
I mean, one thing we were lucky about with our product, I mean, all you have to really do is taste it. And so it was very easy to, off the bat, just decide, okay, our strategy is sampling, because sampling works. And if I'm selling in Whole Foods or anywhere else, and particularly if I was the one doing the demo, but eventually obviously I hired other people, and people sampled the product, they bought the product moved well, and it moved well on shelves. And that was a great strategy initially. The problem with it is, you know, now we have products in over 3,000 stores. Within the next 3 weeks, we're going into Kroger and CVS, and we'll have products probably in about 4,500 stores, going into Wegmans in a couple of weeks. So within the next couple of weeks, we'll be somewhere north of 4,500 stores. And obviously, I can't go do demos in 4,500 stores. And right now during COVID, nobody can do demos in any stores. And so we've really shifted from sort of looking at ways to do demos to things like different types of social media, web ads, doing a lot more online with that, different publications. And then the other thing that we've done recently in the last couple of months is we've hired a public relations marketing agency to help us really sort of expand our reach. And we're still, you know, when we are allowed to go back into stores and do demos, we'll still continue to obviously not all myself, but we'll still continue to hire demo companies. And I still think that's probably the easiest way for us to convert somebody, is giving them a chance to try the product. And we'll do field marketing, which is one thing that we had planned to do a lot of this spring and weren't able to do, meaning that we had people handing out samples on the streets of New York City and Boston, and we were starting to do that. So that's on hold for a little bit, but still working that in along with ads on the internet.
Got it. Okay. One last question before we talk about the future. Okay. Let's talk just a little bit about the team, because there is a common belief that to run a business, and even to start a business, that people need a big team. And I'm trying to demystify that. And I think your story, you know, such a successful business that has been growing so fast. Tell us a little bit, how did you deal with talent, you know, from the beginning? What was your first hire? How far along were you in the process when you hired someone? I know you're like an octopus, right? You reach everywhere. You're relentless. You're learning. You know what you don't know, and you go after that. And I think that's such a strong example for other people.
Well, initially I did everything 100% by myself, including, I mean, when I first started, I was renting a commercial, even for this product, renting a commercial kitchen. I was making it, packaging it, selling it to the stores, delivering it to the stores, demoing it, and then invoicing and cashing the check. I mean, so that went on for a period of time. Eventually I was able to hire people to help me make the product. But even up until fairly recently, there have been times that I've had to make the product. And our team has really evolved, and some of it has been, you know, trying something and seeing if it works, and some of it doesn't, and it doesn't always work. Eventually, we've sort of now got the manufacturing process really, really well done, you know, well under control. That was a huge challenge. We had to go from making it by hand in small batches to opening a very sophisticated factory, which we opened about a year and a half ago. And so we have a state-of-the-art manufacturing line, and we are now an SQF 3 rated company, which is the highest level of food safety and quality. So I had to get a phenomenal food safety person. I had to get a phenomenal operations person that's also a mechanic. And it, you know, it took a little while to get there. And then outside of that, because it's such sophisticated equipment, I don't need that many other people running it. So we have right now just a solid team of people who can make the product. And I've got just a terrific operations manager, food safety manager. And then I was really lucky because the next person who came aboard was my husband. And he is, I may be relentless, he's more relentless than I am. So he, you know, he's more of a risk taker even than I am. And he just, you know, he saw the possibility in this even when I was thinking it was, you know, too big of a nut to crack. He sort of saw the possibility in this. So he started working part-time on it about a year and a half ago. Eventually has really phased out most of his other business and is now just completely in the weeds with me. And the two of us together are really driving the ship here. We are outsourcing things where we can. We've brought in some terrific brokers that have sales teams that sort of act as our sales team in some ways. And we've partnered with a phenomenal marketing PR agency, which, and we've sort of learned that hiring agencies and outsourcing sort of big pieces really works well for us. And then we'll continue to grow our team in-house too at the right times. We'll continue at some point to hire directors of sales, directors of marketing, but it's working well for us to outsource some of these things too, so that we can really get top talent and more than one perspective and not be necessarily committed to one person to do things. And we've been able to sort of expand our reach by doing that.
It's your story. It's, you know, I do think Undercover Snacks, I mean, your story has so many lessons. So let's talk about the future.
Sure.
Let's talk about the potential for the business, where you see the growth coming from. I think it's amazing how in such a short period of time, you've been able to build such a strong foundation to grow the business and such a professional way of handling everything from manufacturing to sales to, you know, branching out and growing fast. So I personally see a lot of potential, and I'm a huge fan, as you know. Let's talk about what's your strategy to grow the business.
So I think up until now, the real challenge for us was manufacturing. We realized we had a product that we could get out there, and it was an incredibly risky, difficult decision to build our own factory. And I have no background in, I didn't have a background in food prior to this, let alone a background in manufacturing, nor did my husband. And we got through that. We built this incredible factory. We have an incredible team. And now we have an asset that I think puts us at a huge advantage compared to other snack companies. We're not relying on a co-manufacturer. And so we can pivot more quickly. We can ensure, especially in the midst of COVID, we can ensure our retailers that we have no supply chain issues whatsoever. We have no issue turning product very quickly. So if we suddenly get a big account, we can, on a dime, we can manufacture whatever it takes and we can get it out the door. And so now that we have this incredible asset that we can expand upon, we really think that we could capture even a bigger share of the snack market, not just the chocolate market. We're really confident in our ability now to manufacture. And so we want to continue with additional flavors. We want to look at some other potential avenues for similar products. And then we want to move into other snacking products that may or may not use chocolate, but that really sort of look at the potential to have healthy ingredients in disguise. And another thing I didn't mention is because my children have celiac disease, and because we manufacture our own facility, we're in a unique position to also make allergy-friendly and gluten-free snacks. So we decided, okay, we're manufacturing, we are not going to bring in any nuts or any other allergens into the facility. We have milk in our milk chocolate because that was always there. Eventually we'll be running that on a separate line. But because we don't have anything else manufactured here, we're really focusing and able to commit ourselves to the allergy-friendly market too. And also sort of responsibly sourced snacks. We're Rainforest Alliance certified and certified women-owned business. So I think there's just huge opportunity to take all of those things and all of the experience now that we've developed as manufacturers and really move into the snack market.
I mean, I would love it.
So you'll have to come take a tour of the factory.
I'm seriously, we have to book it.
Yeah, you'll come back.
Thank you for being with us today. I was here with Diana Levy. She is the founder, co-owner, and CEO of Undercover Snacks. It's not a secret that the product is amazing, but most of all, it's an incredible story of having a dream and pursuing a dream and making it happen that I think can inspire millions of people who are out there thinking about what they want to do next and not having the courage to get started. So thank you for sharing all of the behind the scenes and all of the lessons you've had along the way, Diana.
Thanks, Anna. Nice to talk to you. I'll talk to you soon.
Thank you. Bye, everyone. Now get out there and live it. Bye.